The massive space station called Trade Station Nexus was always busy. Hundreds of different alien creatures walked through its long hallways every day. Some came to buy and sell things from distant planets. Others came to make important deals between their worlds. The air buzzed with strange languages and the sound of business being done. But today, something terrible was happening in the main shopping area that made even the busiest traders stop and stare. A small alien girl was dying right there on the cold metal floor. She belonged to a race called the Zelani, and she looked about 12 years old in human terms. The poor child was curled up next to a big shipping box, barely breathing. Her skin, which should have been a beautiful blue-green color that glowed with inner light, had turned an ugly gray. The natural light patterns under her skin that showed she was healthy were almost completely gone. She could barely breathe. 3 tall adult Zelani stood around her like judges deciding her fate. They were over 7 feet tall and moved with grace, but their faces showed no kindness at all. Their leader was a female with fancy silver marks covering her arms and face. She spoke first in their own musical language, then switched to the common space language that everyone could understand. Her voice was cold as ice when she announced to everyone watching, "This broken one cannot travel with us anymore. She brings shame to our important mission. We are leaving her here for the station workers to throw away." The crowd that had gathered around them murmured and nodded. Most seemed to agree with this harsh decision. A group of Vorthak aliens stood nearby watching everything. The Vorthak were known throughout the galaxy for being extremely logical about everything. They never let emotions affect their choices. Their leader, speaking through a small machine that translated his words, said in a flat voice, "This is the smart choice. It makes no sense to waste time and resources on genetic mistakes." On the other side of the circle, a group of proud bird-like creatures called Kazari puffed up their colorful feathers. They looked down on other species and thought they were better than everyone else. Their captain made a disgusted sound and said loudly, "Our people would never create something so weak and useless. This shows how inferior the Zelani really are." Even the Tellurian traders, who usually saw opportunity in everything and everyone, just shook their heads sadly. These aliens cared only about making money, but one of them looked at the dying girl and said, "There's no way to make profit from broken merchandise like that." The situation got worse when 2 station security guards walked over carrying a large container marked with symbols that meant biological waste. They planned to put the little girl inside it and shoot her out into space like garbage. This was how the station got rid of things that might spread disease or cause problems. The little girl's eyes fluttered open for just a moment. She looked up at all the different alien faces surrounding her. There were dozens of them from many different worlds and species. Some had tentacles, others had fur or scales. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4 or more. But as her weak eyes moved from face to face, searching desperately for even a tiny bit of compassion or help, she found nothing. Every single being looking down at her saw her as worthless trash. Her own people, the elegant Zelani who should have protected her, had already turned their backs. The logical Vorthak saw her as a waste of resources. The proud Kazari saw her as proof of genetic weakness. The profit-focused Tellurians saw no value in helping her. Even species that weren't part of these main groups just stood there doing nothing. The security guards moved closer with their waste container. One of them activated a scanner and ran it over the girl's body. "Biological contamination levels are minimal," he reported to his partner. "Safe for standard disposal procedures." The little girl tried to speak, but only managed a weak whisper that no one bothered to listen to. Her light patterns flickered one more time and then went almost completely dark. In just a few more minutes, she would be dead whether they put her in the container or not. The crowd began to break up. The dramatic scene was over, and everyone had business to get back to. The Zelani delegation walked away without looking back even once. The other alien species returned to their shopping and deal-making. In their minds, they had just witnessed the natural order of things. The weak died, and the strong survived. It was simple, logical, and efficient. But the universe was about to show them that sometimes the most unexpected heroes come from the most unlikely places. Captain Jerome Washington had been hauling cargo through space for 15 long years aboard his ship called the New Horizon. He had seen pirates attack defenseless merchants, watched entire space stations get destroyed by wars, and even witnessed alien creatures that could melt steel with their bare hands. But nothing had ever made him stop dead in his tracks like what he was seeing right now in the marketplace. He had just finished buying supplies for his ship when he heard the commotion. At first, he thought it might be some kind of alien ceremony or maybe a street performance. But as he got closer and saw that dying child surrounded by all those cold faces, something deep inside his chest started burning with anger. His crew members came walking out of the supply store behind him, their arms full of packages and equipment they needed for their next journey. The first to notice something was wrong was Dr. Nina Roberts, the ship's doctor. She was a smart woman who had given up a comfortable job on Earth to help people throughout the galaxy. Her dark eyes quickly scanned the crowd and immediately understood what was happening. "Captain, what's all that noise about over there?" she asked, setting down her medical supplies and squinting to get a better look at the situation. Right beside her, Chief Engineer Tyrone Jackson dropped the heavy toolbox he was carrying. He was a big man with gentle hands who could fix anything that broke on their ship. But his voice shook with disbelief as he said, "Oh no, boss. Are they really about to throw that little kid out into space like garbage?" The third crew member, Communications Officer Latosha Green, didn't wait for anyone to answer. She pushed past both men and started walking quickly toward the crowd. She was the youngest member of their crew but also the most passionate about helping others. "That's just a baby," she called out angrily. "How can all these people just stand there and watch?" Before Captain Washington could stop her, a tall gray alien wearing an official uniform stepped directly into their path. This was one of the Vorthak, the species known for making every decision based purely on cold logic. His voice came through a translation device that made him sound like a robot. "You humans must not get involved in this matter," the alien official said sternly. "Your species is known throughout the galaxy as dangerous meat eaters. Your primitive hunting instincts make you unsuitable for making civilized decisions. This defective creature serves no useful purpose to anyone." Captain Washington felt his jaw muscles tighten with rage. Ever since humans had started traveling between the stars, other alien species had treated them like barely tamed wild animals. They called humans carnivores and predators, as if eating meat made them evil monsters. Most aliens ate plants or absorbed energy directly from sunlight, so they thought human eating habits were disgusting and barbaric. "I don't care what you think about us," Washington said through gritted teeth, pushing the alien official aside with his shoulder. "We're not going to stand here and watch a child die when we can help." Dr. Roberts was already running toward the little girl, pulling out her medical scanner as she moved. She dropped to her knees beside the dying Zelani child and immediately began checking her vital signs. The scanner beeped and hummed as it analyzed the girl's condition. "Her whole system is shutting down," the doctor reported quickly. "It's like her body can't process energy anymore. She's literally starving to death, but in a way I've never seen before." A proud Khazari diplomat with bright red and gold feathers spread his wings wide to make himself look bigger and more threatening. "You foolish beast-eaters will only make things worse," he squawked angrily. "Your violent predator nature makes you dangerous to weak and helpless creatures. You will probably eat her." But Captain Washington completely ignored the insults. He had heard them all before, and right now he didn't care what any of these aliens thought about humans. There was a child dying, and that was the only thing that mattered. "Tyrone, get over here and help me carry her," he ordered his engineer. "Nina, get back to the ship fast and get the medical bay ready for emergency treatment." Just then, a crackling voice came through their communication devices. It was the station commander, who controlled everything that happened on Trade Station Nexus. "Attention human vessel New Horizon. We strongly recommend that you do not interfere with this situation. Human biology and medical knowledge are completely incompatible with Zelani physiology. You are not equipped to provide proper care for this alien species." Captain Washington carefully lifted the unconscious girl in his arms. She was surprisingly light, and her skin felt cold and rough like tree bark. Her breathing was so shallow he could barely feel it against his chest. "Well, then I guess we'll have to learn as we go," he replied firmly into his communicator. "Because there's no way we're leaving this kid here to die." The crowd of alien onlookers began murmuring and pointing as the humans carried the girl away. Some seemed shocked that the primitive carnivores would risk their own safety for a member of another species. Others seemed disgusted that such barbaric creatures would dare to touch a Zelani child. But the four humans ignored every comment, every warning, and every insult. They had made their choice, and nothing was going to stop them from trying to save a life. The medical bay on the New Horizon had never been busier. Dr. Nina Roberts moved quickly around the small room, checking machines and reading data from her scanners. The alien girl lay on the examination table, looking more dead than alive. Her skin had turned completely gray now, like old concrete, and the beautiful light patterns that should have been glowing under her skin were barely visible anymore. "I've been studying everything I can find about her species," Dr. Roberts explained to her three crewmates who had crowded into the medical bay to help. "The Zelani people are like walking plants. They get all their energy from absorbing sunlight, just like the trees and flowers back on Earth. Chief Engineer Tyrone Jackson scratched his head as he looked at all the complicated medical equipment. His job was usually fixing broken engines and computer systems, but he wanted to help however he could. So you're saying she's basically starving because she can't eat sunlight anymore? It's much worse than that, the doctor replied, pointing to the readings on her screen. Her whole body is shutting down because the system that converts light into energy isn't working right. It's like her internal solar panels are broken. Dr. Roberts suddenly stopped talking and stared at her scanner with a puzzled expression. She ran the device over the girl's stomach area several times, checking and double-checking her readings. This is really strange, she said slowly. Her stomach and intestines are much more developed than they should be for a Zelani. Most of her people have very simple digestive systems because they don't need to process solid food. Communications Officer Latosha Green had been researching Zelani biology on her computer for the past hour. She looked up from her screen with excitement in her eyes. Doctor, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Could she actually digest regular food like we do? That's exactly what I'm thinking, Dr. Roberts nodded. But here's the problem. The Zelani culture considers eating solid food to be disgusting and primitive. They think any creature that has to consume other living things for energy is barbaric and uncivilized. Captain Jerome Washington leaned against the doorway, watching his crew work together to solve this puzzle. His face was hard with anger as he understood what this meant. So this little girl was born with the ability to survive by eating food instead of just sunlight. But her own people would rather watch her die than admit she's different from them. Exactly, Dr. Roberts said sadly. They probably see her condition as some kind of shameful genetic defect that proves their species isn't perfect. The next few days were like a desperate race against time. The crew worked around the clock to try to save the dying child. Tyrone spent hours modifying the ship's environmental controls to produce the exact type of light that Zelani normally needed. At the same time, he rigged up special lamps that could provide different wavelengths of artificial sunlight. Dr. Roberts carefully prepared tiny amounts of liquefied plant matter, starting with the gentlest and most easily digestible substances she could find. She had to be extremely careful because giving the wrong thing to an alien could easily kill them instead of help them. Latosha spent every free moment researching everything she could find about Zelani physiology and culture. She learned that children like this girl appeared in their society about once in every 1,000 births, but they were always hidden away or abandoned because they were considered shameful mistakes. Very slowly, almost like watching a flower bloom in slow motion, their patient began to improve. The terrible gray color started to fade from her skin. Tiny hints of blue and green began to appear, growing stronger each day. Most amazingly of all, the bioluminescent patterns under her skin started to flicker back to life like Christmas lights being turned on one by one. On the 5th day, something incredible happened. The girl's eyes fluttered open for the first time since they had rescued her. She looked around the medical bay with confusion and fear, taking in all the strange human faces surrounding her. She tried to speak, but her voice was so weak they could barely hear her. When she finally managed to get the words out, she spoke in broken Galactic Standard, the common language used for trade between different species. Why? She whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. Why would you help broken one like me? Latosha immediately moved closer to the examination table and took the girl's thin hand in hers. Her voice was warm and gentle as she replied, Sweetheart, you are not broken at all. You're just different from other people in your family. And being different doesn't make you worthless or wrong. Over the next few hours, as the girl grew stronger, she began to tell them her story. Her name was Lyra, and she had lived her whole life knowing she was different from other Zelani children. While they could play outside in the sunlight all day and get stronger, she grew weaker and sicker no matter how much light she absorbed. Her parents had taken her to many doctors and specialists, but no one could fix what they all considered a terrible genetic defect. The Zelani government had records showing that about 1 in every 1,000 children were born with this condition, but instead of trying to help them or find treatments, their society simply pretended these children didn't exist. My people believe that eating solid matter like animals do is disgusting and primitive, Lyra explained, her voice getting stronger with each passing hour. They would rather let children like me die than admit we might need a different kind of food to survive. Captain Washington shook his head in disgust. So they'd rather lose their own children than change their narrow-minded ideas about what's normal and acceptable. But now, for the first time in her young life, Lyra had found people who saw her differences as something to work with rather than something to be ashamed of. 3 weeks had passed since the crew of the New Horizon had saved Lyra from certain death. The young Zelani girl had made an amazing recovery and was now helping around the ship like a regular crew member. Her skin glowed with healthy blue and green patterns, and she had learned to speak Galactic Standard much better. She spent most of her time studying in the ship's small library, reading everything she could find about different alien species and their cultures. Life aboard the cargo ship had settled into a comfortable routine when suddenly their emergency communication system started beeping loudly. Captain Jerome Washington rushed to the bridge and activated the distress signal receiver. The message that came through made him shake his head in disbelief. A research ship was in serious trouble somewhere in the dangerous Kepler asteroid field. The vessel was badly damaged and drifting helplessly through space rocks that were moving at deadly speeds. But what made this situation truly ironic was the identity of the ship sending the distress call. It belonged to the Khazari, the same proud bird-like aliens who had mocked the humans just 3 weeks earlier for rescuing a worthless defective child. Chief Engineer Tyrone Jackson quickly ran a scan of the damaged ship as they approached the asteroid field. His face grew serious as he read the results on his screen. "Captain, this is bad. Really bad. Their hull is broken open in at least 6 different places. They're losing air fast, and some of their crew are probably already injured or dead." But the situation was even worse than just a damaged ship. Dr. Nina Roberts had been scanning the asteroid field itself, and what she found made rescue almost impossible. "Those space rocks are giving off massive amounts of deadly radiation," she reported grimly. "The levels are so high that most alien species would die within just 2 or 3 minutes of exposure." Captain Washington studied their options. Even with their best protective suits, humans could only survive about 30 minutes in that kind of radiation field. That wasn't nearly enough time to search a large research vessel, find survivors, and get them back to safety. "Our enhanced suits might protect us for half an hour at most," the captain said, running his hand over his face in frustration. "But would need at least 2 hours to do a proper search and rescue mission." From her seat at the communication station, Latosha Green was already calculating flight paths and rescue scenarios. But every option she tried ended the same way. "There's no way to get in there and get back out safely. The radiation would kill our rescue team before they could save anyone." That's when a quiet voice spoke up from the corner of the bridge. Lyra had been listening to everything, and now she stepped forward with a determined look on her face. "I can go into the asteroid field," she said simply. Everyone on the bridge turned to stare at the young Zalani girl in shock. Her skin was pulsing with calm blue and green light patterns, but her expression was completely serious. Captain Washington's response was immediate and firm. "Absolutely not. There is no way I'm sending a child into that death trap." But Lyra had been studying Dr. Roberts' medical research for weeks now, and she understood her own unique biology better than anyone. "Captain, remember what the doctor discovered about my changed metabolism? The same system that lets me digest food like you do also processes toxins and harmful substances differently than normal Zalani." She pointed to the medical reports that Dr. Roberts had been keeping on her recovery. "The tests show that my modified cellular structure can actually convert certain types of dangerous radiation into usable energy. The same radiation that would kill you in minutes would actually make me stronger." Dr. Roberts quickly pulled up her research files and started checking the data. Her eyes grew wide as she confirmed what Lyra was saying. She's absolutely right. Her unique biology doesn't just let her eat organic matter. It also processes radioactive energy and converts it into something her body can use for fuel. Communications Officer Latosha Green immediately protested. "It's still too dangerous. She's just a kid, and we don't know for sure that she could survive out there." Lyra's voice grew stronger and more confident as she made her argument. "These same Khazari people called you humans primitive carnivores for saving my life. They said you were too barbaric and violent to make civilized decisions. Now they're going to die unless someone helps them, and I'm the only one who can survive in that radiation field long enough to mount a rescue." Captain Washington wrestled with the decision. Every instinct told him to protect the child who had become like a daughter to his crew. But he also knew that without her help, the Khazari research team would certainly die. After what felt like hours but was really only a few minutes, he made the hardest decision of his career. "All right, but we do this my way. You wear a modified environmental suit for extra protection, you stay in constant communication with us, and at the first sign of trouble, you get out of there immediately." The rescue mission that followed became legendary throughout the galaxy. Lyra, wearing a specially modified protective suit that Tyrone had quickly adapted for her physiology, was able to navigate through the deadly asteroid field like it was a pleasant garden walk. The radiation that would have killed any other rescuer actually energized her and made her stronger. She located the damaged Khazari research vessel and guided the human rescue team through the safest possible route. Her unique biology allowed her to work in the radioactive environment for hours without any protection problems. Together, the mixed human and Zelani rescue teams saved 17 Khazari researchers who had been trapped in their damaged ship. Word of the incredible rescue spread throughout the galactic communication networks faster than light travel itself. The story of how the primitive carnivorous humans and the genetically defective Zelani child had risked their lives to save the same aliens who had insulted them became the talk of every space station and colony in the sector. The proud Khazari who had once called humans dangerous predators now owed their lives to the very people they had dismissed as uncivilized barbarians. 6 months had passed since the dramatic rescue mission that saved the Khazari research team, and life aboard the New Horizon had changed in ways that Captain Jerome Washington never could have imagined. What had started as a simple cargo hauling operation had transformed into something completely unexpected and wonderful. The ship itself looked different now. They had expanded the common areas and added extra sleeping quarters to accommodate their growing number of passengers. But these weren't ordinary travelers looking for transport from one planet to another. These were refugees of a very special kind, individuals who had been rejected, abandoned, or cast out by their own species for being different. Captain Washington stood in the enlarged common area, watching what had become a daily scene that never failed to warm his heart. Lyra, now much taller and healthier than when they had first found her dying on the station floor, was patiently teaching basic nutrition concepts to a young Vorthak named Kex. The logical Vorthak people had banished Kex from their world because he showed too much emotion, which they considered a dangerous mental defect that could spread to others. You see, when your body processes different types of food, it creates energy in different ways, Lyra explained gently, using simple diagrams she had drawn on a tablet. Her bioluminescent skin patterns pulsed with calm blue and green lights as she spoke, showing that she was happy and relaxed. Across the room, Chief Engineer Tyrone Jackson was working closely with a female Tellurian engineer named Zara. The profit-obsessed Tellurian society had rejected all of her creative inventions because they couldn't immediately see how to make money from them. But Tyrone recognized her genius and was helping her develop some truly revolutionary engine designs. Communications Officer Latosha Green looked up from her workstation where she had been reviewing their latest messages. "Captain, we've got another interesting communication here. A whole coalition of Zelani worlds wants to set up formal talks with us about people who have Lyra's condition." This was remarkable news. For thousands of years, the Zelani had simply abandoned children born with metabolic differences, calling them genetic defects and refusing to even acknowledge they existed. But now, after seeing what Lyra had accomplished, they were calling these individuals adaptive genetic variations instead of mistakes. Dr. Nina Roberts looked up from her research station where she had been analyzing data from their latest rescued passenger. The galactic medical community is absolutely fascinated by Lyra's unique abilities. Just this week, 3 of the most prestigious universities in known space have offered her full research fellowships with unlimited funding. Captain Washington already knew what the answer would be, but he asked anyway. "And what does Lyra want to do about these offers?" "She wants to stay right here with us," Dr. Roberts replied with a smile. "She told me yesterday that her real family consists of the people who saw her value when everyone else saw nothing but waste and failure." Suddenly, their main communication system chimed with the sound that indicated an incoming priority transmission. The holographic display activated, showing a formal delegation of various alien species. Captain Washington recognized several faces immediately, including some of the same Zelani officials who had been present 6 months ago when they abandoned Lyra to die. The lead Zelani diplomat, the same female with intricate silver markings who had called Lyra defective, now spoke in a much more respectful tone. "Captain Washington, we have come to formally request the return of the individual known as Lyra. Our Cultural Council has thoroughly reconsidered her status within our society." Before Captain Washington could even think of how to respond, Lyra herself stepped forward. Her posture was confident and strong, and her skin glowed with bright, healthy light patterns that showed she was no longer the dying child they had once discarded. "I appreciate that you've changed your minds about people like me," Lyra said clearly and firmly. "But I choose to remain here with the humans. They taught me the most important lesson anyone can learn, that being different from others is not the same thing as being broken or worthless." A Vorthak representative in the delegation spoke up, his translation device making his words sound formal and scientific. "Our detailed analysis of human behavioral patterns has led us to conclude that what we initially classified as primitive predatory instincts actually represents a highly advanced form of social adaptation. Rather than consuming and destroying, humans consume and integrate. They include rather than exclude." Even more surprisingly, a proud Khazari captain stepped forward. This was one of the same species that had originally mocked the humans for rescuing Lyra. Our people were completely wrong about the carnivorous humans, he admitted with obvious difficulty. Their hunger extends far beyond just food to include individuals that other societies discard. This is not primitive behavior at all. It may be the most advanced social trait we have ever encountered in our exploration of the galaxy. Captain Washington looked around at his incredibly diverse crew and felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with ego. In the past 6 months, they had rescued and welcomed aboard individuals from 12 different species. There was Kex the emotional Vorthak, Zara the creative Tellurian engineer, a Khazari pilot whose wings had been damaged and who was considered useless by his people, and several others. You know, the thing about being called carnivores, Washington said to the assembled alien representatives on the screen, is that most people forget that predators don't just hunt for food. The best predators also fiercely protect their pack members. And our pack now includes anyone who needs a home and family. The transmission ended, and immediately the common area filled with the sound of Lyra's gentle laughter. Around her, beings from 8 different worlds were working together, studying together, and building something new together. Each one had found value and purpose in a place where their own species had seen only problems and failures. The New Horizon continued its journey through the vast darkness of space, but it was no longer just a cargo vessel earning money by moving goods from planet to planet. It had become something much more important, a beacon of hope that proved humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ancient predatory nature, but their unique ability to see potential and worth in places where others saw only waste and rejection.